Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Liberated Voices. I'm your host, Hussein Abu Dhar Ali Biakidis.
And I am Imtia Fatima, your co-host for today. We are so honoured to be joined by Brother Ahammed Hussain, who will be speaking to us as an activist who's worked with MPACUK UK. He's worked with Citizenship is the Right and other community projects. And today he'll be giving us his opinions on Rishi Sunak's impact on Muslims across the UK.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a real pleasure to be on with you guys.
So, Ahmed, obviously Rishi is the first Prime Minister of colour we've had in this country. That's got some people quite excited. There's also been some people who have been quite critical of him from minority backgrounds as well. Why do you think? What do you think this means for the country, having a prime minister of color to start with?
Well, someone once asked me, like, "Hey, look, isn't it going to be a positive thing? Like, what's the pros and cons about this Britain's first non-white prime minister?" And I said to them, "Look, seriously, can you expect anything positive from someone who wasn't elected into the role in any way? Like, not even on the party level." He is the least popular of a bunch of unpopular candidates. He didn't win against Liz Truss. He might have won the parliamentary politicians' vote back in spring, early summer, but the membership don't want him. And based on what he had been doing when he was Boris Johnson's right-hand man as Chancellor since 2020, he's got no friends in the general populace either. Because when you look at the situation today in Britain, like, he was a major person in shaping the Britain that we're in 2022, after 2 years of COVID and everything that had been happening before and so on. So I think, like, put the color of his skin to one side. It really is about what were his policies when he was Chancellor, what trajectory is he on right now. And, like, especially for the Muslim community, we saw during his leadership campaign, he was saying that, and he was the one who threw this into the ring. It wasn't Liz Truss. He threw into the ring that he wanted to pump up the prevent duty and other counter-extremism, counter-terror measures. Now, the prevent duty, as yourself and all of your audience, I'm sure, already knows, it's been debunked by academics. In terms of as a counter-extremism policy, it's been debunked. And here he is saying that he wants to, push it further, push it harder, and so on. And then Liz Truss reacted to that, saying that, it was interesting. She said that, oh, he's just trying to, grab attention because he's got a failing leadership campaign. But when she responded, of course, she said that, yeah, of course, we're also going to be pushing the prevent duty even harder as well. So basically, like, in a nutshell, sure, he's got a brown face, but he's pushing the exact same policies as any of his right-wing colleagues were pushing as well. It doesn't matter that he's just a different brown face.
So would you say it's probably actually worse that because he's of a minority, has to prove himself more to the Tories, or would you just say he's no different from he's just Tory as it comes?
Well, I think there's two ways of looking at it. One of them is, as you said, like, is he gonna behave like he's gonna have to prove himself, or is he going to, like Priti Patel, just be really enthusiastic and go in really hard with the Tory ideological stuff, knowing that people around him are going to give him a pass because he's a brown guy. Like the stuff that Priti Patel had been doing. Sorry to go off on tangent, but the stuff that Priti Patel had been doing as Home Secretary, like, a white Tory minister could probably have only dreamed of doing such things. Like, she was the one who drew up the Rwanda deportation plans, and now we're seeing Suella Cruella Braverman, very, very obsessed. I think that was her words, obsessed with deporting people to Rwanda. So if any of his colleagues are anything to go by, if his past policies are anything to go by. It's that it's actually extra scary that they've got a brown guy in charge because he's just going to be a very enthusiastic hatchet man for the Tories.
Yeah, of course. I think that's so important to remember because I think what we're seeing at the moment is a very split opinion among Muslims in the UK. So I think on one hand they're sort of under the impression that, you know what, it's better than having another white person representing us. Maybe this person will understand because of course not being completely white would mean that maybe he'll understand that, you know, these are the issues we go through. I think, do you agree that it's somewhat a good thing at all, or is it all just negative?
I don't see it as being a good thing at all. And that's because, in terms of the bigger picture, like, so if we step away from Rishi Sunak as an individual, if we look at what the Conservative government has been laying the groundwork for the past few years, they have been laying the groundwork to undermine dissent as much as possible. So you've got the elections bill, you've got the Police Crimes Courts and Sentencing Act, you've got the Nationality and Borders Act. You've got the Public Order Bill coming through, I think. So basically, what all these different things are doing in conjunction is making it much harder for the regular, Joe Blog citizen to express discontent and to express a dissenting opinion. And we're already seeing that happen, with police cracking down on protests and so on. What does that mean? Like, oh, maybe because it's a brown guy in charge now, people are going to be able to expect an easier ride. I think that is too naive. That is too naive because when you have a system of power that is enabling further their own, the projection of their power and undermining the expression of dissent, those are tools in the toolbox that are going to be used. We've seen it happen before. And, just because it's just a brown guy in charge, I don't see the dots being connected. Why, if he turned, look, the only way my mind or anyone's mind is going to be put at ease is if he retracts those acts, the Policing Act, the Elections Act, the Nationality and Borders Act. That's the only way I can see anyone being justified in thinking, oh, he's not as bad as the last, person in charge.
Yeah.
And I think some of it comes down to because he's grown up quite wealthy. His wife is a billionaire, comes from one of the wealthiest families in India. He's probably not had the same experience anyway that most minorities have had. He's not relating to minorities in that sort of way. I'm just wondering if you're aware much of his policies. Obviously, you mentioned prevent. Do you know if he's mentioned anything else to do with the Muslim community, or where do you think he's going to go in regards to us and Islamophobia, which is becoming ridiculously high at the moment in this country?
I mean, if you look at his track record, like since he came in as an MP, he's generally been supportive of Tory policies. So if there's anything that you thought was like, oh, that's an unfair law, he supported it. He supported it coming through. So one of the big ones, which people still aren't really that aware of, is the Nationality and Borders Act. Now it's an act. Makes it easier for the Home Secretary to just strip people's citizenship. And that affects millions of people in the UK. I saw one estimate, I think, of about 6 million people who would be under threat, because basically the way it works is that if an individual can theoretically apply for citizenship in another country, then the UK government has given themselves the right to be able to strip away that person's citizenship. Now, for example, I'm ethnically Bangladeshi. That means theoretically, because up to my grandparents' generation, I can trace them as Bangladeshi citizens. That means that I theoretically could apply for Bangladeshi citizenship. That means that theoretically, according to the Nationality and Borders Act, the UK government, the Home Secretary, could just say, oh, Ahmed, your citizenship's gone because you can go apply to Bangladesh for their citizenship. Because the loophole that they're trying to cover here is that it's against UN international law to leave an individual stateless. And then we have, individuals like Shamima Begum, who are used as a sort of a test case. Like,
mm,
how far can we push public opinion? Obviously, she's on one end of the spectrum. She's someone who is very vilified, who's very, no one wants to be seen to be an ally or a supporter of someone like Shamima Begum. So her citizenship is stripped. And then it's like, well, people like her, they deserve to be stateless and so on. But then, the way these things work is that that's then normalized. That test case is used as a learning exercise for the system to, become more efficient. And then before you know it, you've got loads and loads of people having their citizenship stripped, and there's too many people for any individual group or organization to protest about, because the system as a whole learns and improves and becomes more efficient. Sorry, I realize I'm going off on a tangent, but um, Rishi Sunak, like,
mm,
he had the opportunity. He was a chancellor. That is a really senior position. Like, if he had any conscience in him when he was chancellor, he could have swung things around. He could have said that, these are the reasons why some of these bills and laws are unconscionable, and I'm going to use my political weight as chancellor to swing back against them. And the thing about Boris Johnson is that he was a populist in the most literal definition of the word. He would only move where public opinion moved. So, if senior people in his party, back in Boris Johnson's administration, if senior people in his party did kick up enough of a fuss, he changed his opinion as well. He went where the wind was blowing. So, Rishi Sunak is most likely to continue on the trajectory he's on. Like, how can we
mm,
judge otherwise? How can we judge otherwise? It's illogical to think that he's going to
mm,
behave differently now than he did before. He supported bills, he wants to hype. He wants to, push harder on things like the prevent duty. He said that before. Why shouldn't we take him at his word now and assume
mm,
that he's going to keep this up?
So we've seen then from his track record that clearly he's problematic. Um, I don't think that just is limited to the Muslims that are in the UK, though, is it? I think his international policies are also pretty questionable. Do you have any thoughts on those?
Yeah, I mean, British foreign policy has been problematic for a long, long time now, if
mm,
not always. And as someone who has been approved by the establishment, he therefore carries the same opinions on foreign policy as them. Why do I say he's been approved by them? We saw what happened when a major political leader did not have the approval of the establishment. That was, of course, Jeremy Corbyn.
mm,
We had military people or former military people turning up on breakfast shows and saying that they would not follow Jeremy Corbyn if he became prime minister. Like, that's, I'm not sure if that's like treason, but that sounds pretty close to treason,
yeah,
and so on. So we know what it looks like when a major leader is not backed by the establishment. They will not get into power. And then obviously we're having exposés like the Labour files and other exposés as well, showing how the establishment will do its damnedest to keep anti-establishment people anywhere near from power. So Rishi Sunak, in terms of the usual Muslim concerns, you could say, like Palestine, like Kashmir, like Rohingya, and so on. I mean, specifically with Kashmir, you could say, because his father-in-law is a major donor to the BJP
ah,
party in India. Yeah,
mm,
his father-in-law is a major donor. The thing is, a lot of major businesses in India are major donors to BJP. It's a little bit how the political system and the business system in India works.
mm,
I say that because I've worked on a campaign trying to boycott a Muslim company in India that's based in India. The idea was that this company is boycotted. They have a lot of international business, and try to get this Muslim company to disassociate with the BJP. By doing that campaign, we learned a lot about how politics and business leaders are hand in glove in India.
mm,
There's a lot of close links. You could say it's borderline extortion as well. So with Rishi Sunak's father-in-law, and his wife's wealth as well, being embedded deeply in Indian businesses, and these Indian businesses having a very, close link with the Hindu supremacist party that is running India. What does that
Mm.
say for things like his stance on Kashmir and other India-related issues?
Mm. So
Um,
would you say that's because he's ideologically or sees profit in supporting Hindutva? Or would you say if the INC were in power, he would be funding the INC? It's just whoever's in power, you need to get them on your side if you're doing business.
Yeah, I mean, I think I should be really clear here. Like, it's not because he's Hindu. He hasn't really been as he hasn't really been vocal about his Hindu identity, kind
Mm.
of thing. So when I'm criticizing him, it's not from a Hindu phobic angle.
Mm.
Like I said right at the top of this, um, I don't see him as like a brown guy. I see him as a Tory politician,
Mm.
really. And it's just that, like most Tory politicians who make it to the top of their party, they've got their fingers in a lot of pies.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So, for example, Jeremy Hunt, he was once the culture secretary in the Tory party. He got kicked out because he was doing backdoor negotiations with the Murdoch family about a Sky takeover, increasing
Mm.
the Sky's market share in satellite media, something like that. And others, we saw I think his name was Matt Hancock.
Yeah.
He had fingers in a lot of pies when he was
Mm.
health secretary. He was doing a lot of backdoor deals with people he knew, people he met at the pub. I think that was a joke, actually. So yeah, the way these top tier Tory leaders seem to work is,
Mm.
I'm in power now. I'm going to scratch a lot of backs because you guys helped me become leader, or afterwards you're going to be scratching my back as well. So that just seems to be the way the Tory party works. And if there's Tory fans out there listening on your podcast who think I'm wrong, well, your party has a lot to work on to change that impression.
Mm. Uh, just when we look at foreign policy as well, Liz Truss, quite well known campaign that came out around I think the IHRC did something and Friends of Alliance, probably MPACUK as well, where she said she was going to move the embassy, Israeli embassy, to Jerusalem. Do you think
Yeah.
this is something Rishi Sunak would continue, or do you think he's seen it as a bit of a dangerous thing to get into due to the backlash that Liz Truss got?
I think this is a personal guess.
Mm.
My personal guess is going to be he's going to be silent on it, and he isn't going to push a move to Jerusalem. There's The
Mm.
main reason I say that is because he's already reintroduced the ban on fracking. Now, why do I mention that? A ban on fracking is a huge step back at a time when energy costs are going up and so on. But like the Tory base are, I assume, quite pro, resource exploitation.
Mm.
I mean, unless it's because a lot of these fracking fields are going to be in like Tory constituencies. But the fact that he's pulled back on something which is gonna, if he carried on pushing with fracking, it would have created a lot of fuss and bother, and so it's a lot easier for him to pull back on it. So
Mm.
likewise, I think with moving the embassy to Al Quds, I think that would be an easy way for him to reduce the flack that he saw Liz Truss getting. And the thing is, the next few months, well, firstly, I don't think he's going to last very long at all. He's going to
Uh,
be the leader who is going through one of the most difficult winters in a lot of people's living memories, with energy costs being high, etc., etc., and they're going to go up even more in April. Um, he's going to be the leader who goes through that. And I don't think he's going to last very long in 2023. There's been so much dissent building up on the street, in protests, in unions, and so on through the summer, that in the winter it's just inevitable, I believe, that there's going to be huge dissent on the streets and so on. So he needs to, he saw that Liz Truss's my way or the highway kind of attitude didn't work. She got kicked out. She's like lasted 44, 45 days, the shortest serving prime minister. He saw that that approach didn't work. So he's probably going to try the softly, softly approach. And I think that might be the kind of guy he is, because during COVID, he was the one who introduced the furlough scheme, something that is very non, maybe even anti-capitalist. You know, here's the state, we're going to provide a universal basic health income kind of thing for you guys during this pandemic. It was something that was very not Tory thing to do. So he might go along, and like he might see that as an easy win, in terms of not moving the embassy to Jerusalem.
You know, speaking of his time as Chancellor, and obviously he introduced the furlough scheme, and he does have a background in finance. Do you think that maybe that'll help him this winter? And obviously, I think you skipped ahead to our last question, but he's probably not going to last very long. Is that because of what he's going to do, or is that because he wasn't elected?
I think that because of what his party has destroyed over the last 12 years of rule, it's reached a point where the country is just a difficult place to live in right now. And like, you know, Muslim or not, you know, brown or not, it's going to be difficult for everyone. And so what we're going to see is whoever was in power, this was going to be a very, very difficult time to be in power. Now, being the person at the top who was not voted in by barely anyone, like I don't know how many MPs supported him. It was just a bit over 100. It wasn't even 200, was it? Basically, those are the only people in the entire country who definitely support him. They're the only people in the country. No one else has any kind of, okay, let's give him a honeymoon period. You know what I mean? No one's got any reason to give him an easy ride. Everything that happens is his fault for not solving it right now, or it's his fault for not helping build a solution in his time as chancellor, or it's his fault because it's his party and his part after 12 years of rule, his party has led to this point. In terms of energy costs, in terms of transport costs, in terms of, you know, the safety net being pulled, in terms of everything. So I don't see how he's going to last long in power. He's not really built like a dictator. He's not really. He doesn't have the support from his party to act like a dictator. You know, as Boris Johnson once said, to paraphrase Boris Johnson, Rishi Sunak does not have a stonking majority. You know, Brexit's over. We've got a tough winter ahead. He doesn't have one topic that could unite everyone around him. The only thing that might be able to do that is if he scapegoats someone, a community or someone very, very effectively. It might be Muslims, it might be the Labour movement, it might be this or that other group. But the only way he could try to pull through all the difficult times ahead is if he could effectively scapegoat all of those problems or a big distracting problem onto another group. And we've seen the Tories do that before.
Yeah, it's kind of Tory tradition, I think.
Yeah, it's not just Tories though. What has the war on terror been except a huge scapegoating exercise which benefits the military-industrial complex, you know?
So obviously, this sounds very bleak. There is, I think many of us have always, in the Muslim community, have always been quite anti-Tory generally. Tories have been quite anti-us. Problem is, recently, obviously, we've seen the Ford report come out, the Labour files that you mentioned earlier, Afsana Begum, sorry, was coming out speaking about the sort of racism and Islamophobia she's faced within the Labour Party.
Yeah.
Keir Starmer has really been disgusting when it comes to our community. What alternative is there for us at the moment? What can Muslims do? You know, we can't just stand around waiting to be targeted.
Yeah, most definitely. The thing is, like anything that I might say, it's not going to be a silver bullet that solves everything straight away. But what we need to become, What we need to become is a community that is able to be united and able to work together on our common ground. When I say united, I'm not expecting everyone in one mazhab to become another mazhab, from one sect to become another sect. But there's enough common ground between us for us to want to work together. And what we should have been able to see over the past few years during the COVID years, if not the rest of the 12 years of Tory rule, is that at the end of the day, the only ones we have there for us in our corner is each other. And if we are able to organize our resources and organize our time together, and that means coming together in community organizations, it means that that is the solution. That is the solution that we can rely on. But what does that need? It needs two things. One is from the grassroots point of view, one is from the leadership point of view. Firstly, we need leadership. We need mosque leaders. I'm going to go into a bit more detail on mosque leaders, because these leaders of our mosques, whether it's committee members, whether it's imams, they are in the best place to be able to unite the resources, whether it's money or time. They're there in the best place to unite the resources of our communities and help the weakest from the support of the strongest. During COVID times, I've seen mosques run food banks. I've seen them run carpools and so on. And in Ramadan every year we see mosques organized iftars and so on. We have that possibility, we have that potential in our mosque leadership. They just need to wake up to the fact that their community needs them to step up to this leadership. From the grassroots point of view, we need to have an expectation of leadership. And a word for that is accountability. We need the grassroots to hold our community leadership to account. But most importantly, what the grassroots need to have is a sense of community. Look past the madhahib, the sects, the differences, and just realize that we've got enough people who are out to get us, whether it's the prevent duty, whether it's Schedule 7 at the airports and so on. We've got enough laws and enforcement agencies who are out to get us. We need to be united in and of ourselves as communities. That is the long-term view. And if the answer anyone is looking for is, what can I do now? The answer is start working on that now. What we need to be in a position as a Muslim community, and any democrat, like this isn't even just the Muslims at this point, any demographic that sees themselves as a demographic, the position you need to be in is such that no matter who's in power, you yourself as a community are not going to be attacked, vilified, scapegoated, and so on. That is a situation any of us need to be in, because something that people really don't get is that elections themselves are not a silver bullet. It doesn't matter who's in power. It doesn't matter who you get into power. There's always a tension between the elite and civil society. There's always a tension. The elite, those who rule, always want to extend their capability to rule.
Well, thank you so much, Ahmed, for all of your hard work and joining on this podcast session with us. It's been an honor.
Definitely.
It's been a pleasure. I really appreciate the invitation.
Ahmed, if you could let the viewers know where they can get involved with your work and where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, so we're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, inshallah. Just search for MPACUK, MPACUK. It stands for Muslim Public Affairs Committee UK. Right now, we've actually been banned off TikTok. What's interesting is that we keep posting stuff about Palestine and about what's going on in India, and comment pieces on Rishi Sunak, and the Zionist crowd and the Hindutva crowd keep reporting us on TikTok. But we say what needs to be said. So if there's anyone there who's on TikTok, go find us, go follow us, go share our stuff. Help us build up our following again, inshallah. It'd be really appreciated.
Even more of a reason for all of our followers and all of our listeners to jump on that TikTok and show our support.
Definitely. Okay, we're gonna go. That was Liberated Voices. A very great discussion that we've had today, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.